Hey! Welcome to Daddy Still Broadcasting. Daddy Still. Good evening, guys. It's great to see you. You may be wondering why I'm in Essenam's room. Well, I'll explain. I have this. Well, first of all, my phone is going to die and I need to charge. And I have this surge protector here that also lets us know if there's faulty wiring in a plug. And believe it or not, in most of the plugs in this house, there's faulty wiring. So since I have an iPhone 10 and I want to be very, very careful with this sacred, beautiful entity that I have, that is my iPhone 10, I don't want to charge it in a plug where there is faulty wiring. So as you can see, if there was faulty wiring, there would be a red light on the surge protector, but there's not a red light, and that's why. So in S&M's room is one of the only places where there is a plug that doesn't have faulty wiring. Excuse the haircut. I do have razors. Tommy Levette, it is great to see you, YouTube sister. It is amazing to see you. You might actually love what we're doing tonight. We're gonna finish Scary Stories 3, more tales to chill your bones. I've for the past month I've been going through the entire series of Alvin Schwartz's books, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. But yeah, so that's why I'm in my daughter's room, in Esnam's room, and she sends you a big hug, by the way, Tommy. I'm in my daughter's room because this is one of the only places where there's a plug that I can plug in without faulty wiring. This building that we live in when we moved was built in the 50s, the 1950s, 1956 to be exact. So for that reason, I'm overexposed also. And yeah, so Tommy, how are things going with the? Let me let me get myself to the right exposure. Um, so how are things going for you? I think you live in North Carolina, which is where one of my favorite authors used to live, Thomas Wolfe, if I recall correctly. But how are things going down there in North Carolina with everything that's going on? Are you guys hanging in there? What kind of challenges are you having? Still on lockdown. Yeah, we're still on lockdown too up here in Canada. Um, Not going to complain though. Canada doesn't have nearly as many cases as the States. So even though I miss the States dearly and my heart aches for my country where I'm from, the United States of America, it does, I am thankful to be up here. Unfortunately, in Montreal, where we live, it's a hotbed. This is a hot spot. It is the hot spot of Canada. The whole country of Canada. This is where there's the most cases in the city of Montreal. Unfortunately, in the beginning, it started off slowly here, but yeah. So this is a momentous event that you're witnessing tonight, Tommy, and anyone else who is going to be witnessing this in the replay. I started reading this series of books about a month ago, and it was about a month ago, at least in Canada, that this whole mess started with the quarantine, and I filmed my video. I started. It's been incredible. I'm doing some Brixel Legos for my channel. I've been keeping myself busy with them. I'm glad you're doing well too. Well, thank you, Tommy. I'm glad things are all right down there. I'm glad you're keeping yourself busy with some. I've never heard of those types of Legos, but I'd be interested to see what that's all about. Snum will be with me again tomorrow, so I would definitely check that out for sure. Looking forward to that. So here we are. This is a momentous event. We are at the end. I'm about to read the last part of Scary Stories 3. And just so you know, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Stephen Schwartz, Alvin Schwartz rather, but he lived in Princeton, New Jersey, where I'm from, and which is another hotspot for the coronavirus. But he lived there, and he compiled all of these amazing scary stories that I used to read in my childhood. So this section is called When Things Go, What's Going On Here? When bottles began popping and furniture began flying all over the house, there were many explanations, but none of them was right. Then someone had a scary answer. that could involve you, Tommy. Those are the words that Alvin Schwartz used. I didn't see that last comment there. She loves scary stories, so you're in the right spot. Yeah, I would highly recommend that you check out the other version, the other how do you say it, the other videos in this series that I did, where I would read the scary stories. These books, I grew up reading these books, Tommy. With Asperger's syndrome, a highly functional form of autism that I have, it really kept me company as I spent a lot of my childhood kind of alone and isolated, at least mentally. And these were not even really scary to me. I just really loved it. And the artwork by Stephen Gamble, you'll see, as you see in the thumbnail, is amazing. So what is going on here? And this story is a section in and of itself. It's called The Trouble. So I'll show you this amazing artwork by Stephen Gamble. This book was published, I think, in 1991 or 1992. The other books started coming out around 1985. The events in this story took place in 1958 in a small white house in a suburb of New York City. The names of the people involved have been changed. And one thing I noticed about this particular volume, volume 3, that's amazing artwork. More. Well, who knows? I have never seen your artwork, so I can't judge. But this is just amazing artwork. There's even better, just the scary pictures in general in here are just amazing and gruesome with, the ink and the charcoal and the pencil that he uses. Monday, February 3rd, 1958. Tom Lombardo and his sister Nancy had just come home from school. Tom was going on 13, Nancy was 14. They were talking to their mother in the living room when they heard a loud pop in the kitchen. It sounded like a cork that had been pulled from a bottle of champagne, but it was nothing like that. The cap on the bottle of starch had somehow come unscrewed, and the bottle had tipped over and spilled. Then bottles all over the house began popping. Bottles of nail polish remover, shampoo, bleach, rubbing alcohol, and even a bottle of holy water. Each had a screw cap and took 2 or 3 full turns to open, but each had opened by itself, without any human help, then had fallen over and spilled. Each had a what's going on here? Mrs. Lombardo asked. Nobody knew. But the popping soon stopped and everything went back to normal. It was just one of those crazy things, they decided, and put it out of their minds. Thursday, February 6th. Just after Tom and Nancy got home from school, 6 more bottles popped their caps. The next day, at about the same time, another 6 did. Sunday, February 9th. At 11 o'clock that morning, Tom was in the bathroom brushing his teeth. His father was standing in the doorway. Let me put this in full screen. Let's see here. 1-page view. Yeah, we're going to flip this to 1-page view, and we're going to make this a lot bigger. That's what I love about... By the way, Tommy, if you're bored, I doubt you will be because you have so many amazing toys. But if you're bored during the quarantine and all this COVID-19 stuff, you can actually borrow books from archive.org for free. It's a very reputable site, and they have thousands and thousands of books that you can borrow for free for up to 2 weeks, 13, 14 days, depending on the book. But and we're not sponsored by this, even though if archive.org wants to sponsor us, they know where to find us. But yeah, so there you go. So Sunday, February 9th. I'll have to check it out. Thank you for letting me know. You got it. At 11 o'clock that morning, Tom was in the bathroom brushing his teeth. His father was standing in the doorway talking to him. All of a sudden, a bottle of medicine began moving across the vanity by itself and fell into the sink. At the same time, a bottle of shampoo moved to the edge of the vanity and crashed to the floor. They watched spellbound. I'd better call the police, Mr. Lombardo said. That afternoon, a patrolman interviewed the family as bottles popped in the bathroom. The police assigned a detective named Joseph Briggs to the case. Detective Briggs was a practical man. When something moved, he believed that a human or an animal had moved it, or that it moved because of some vibration or the wind or some other natural cause. He did not believe in ghosts. When the Lombardos said they had nothing to do with them, with what was going on, he thought that at least one of them was lying. He wanted to examine the house. Then he wanted to talk to some experts and find out what they thought. Tuesday, February 11th. The bottle of holy water that had opened a week before opened a second time and spilled. 2 days later, it spilled again. Saturday, February 15th. Tom, Nancy, and a relative were watching TV in the living room when a small porcelain statue rose up from the table. It flew 3 feet through the air and then fell to the rug. Monday, February 17th. A priest blessed the Lombardos' house to protect it against whatever was causing the trouble. Thursday, February 20th. While Tom was doing his homework at one end of the dining room table, a sugar bowl at the other end flew into the hall and crashed. Detective Briggs saw it happen. Later, a bottle of ink on the table flew into a wall and broke, spattering in all directions. Then another porcelain statue took off. It traveled 12 feet and smashed into the desk. Friday, February 21st. To get some peace, the Lombardos went to a relative's house for the weekend. While they were gone, everything at home was normal. Sunday, February 23rd. When the Lombardos returned, another sugar bowl took off. It flew into a wall and smashed into smithereens. Later, a heavy bureau in Tom's room toppled over, but no one was in the room when it happened. February 24th. By now, Detective Briggs had talked to an engineer, a chemist, a physicist, and others. I'm getting a notification. Gonna flip it. There we go. Let's see. Some thought that vibrations in the house were causing the trouble. Tommy said, maybe the spirits don't like sugar. It sure seems that way, Tommy. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you when you're working with your Ouija boards? Or I think you just have Ouija boards as toys. I don't think you really use them. I personally, I used them a couple times when I was a kid, but I will never ever do that again. I don't believe in ghosts, but I do believe that energy, and I have respect for whatever anybody wants to believe, but I personally don't believe in ghosts. I do believe in demons, though, and I think that anything, any kind of paranormal activity comes from demons. Well, I'm happy nothing happened to you with your boards. They're amazing toys, and they are a beautiful piece of history. So I have a lot of respect for the hobby that you have with that. So Monday, February 24th. By now, Detective Briggs had talked to an engineer, a chemist, a physicist, and others. Some thought that the vibrations in the house were causing the troubles. These could come from underground water, they said, or high-frequency radio waves, or from sonic booms caused by airplanes. Others said that the electrical system was the cause, or downdrafts coming through the chimney. The popping of bottles was blamed on chemicals the bottles contained, which, sugar, come on. Tests showed that there were no vibrations in the house. There was nothing wrong with the electrical system, and there were no chemicals in the bottles that would make them pop. Then what was causing the trouble? None of the experts knew. But every day the Lombardos received dozens of letters and telephone calls from people who thought they did know. Many believed that the house was haunted. They thought that a poltergeist was on the loose. And I'm going to show you this other artwork here. I didn't see that last comment. So Tommy, you say, much appreciated. My board say thank you. My board says thank you. I also have 18 haunted wishing dolls as one more on the way. Well, that's amazing. Wishing dolls, never heard of that. But yeah, so and I think the board actually can say thank you. I think on Ouija boards there's written a space to say thank you. They thought, oh yeah, I wanted to show you this artwork here too. More of this amazing artwork here. Yeah, so this is kind of give you an idea of stuff flying through the air. Kind of an idea of like, there that some type of of ghost or spirit is creating this. And just to go back here, I don't know if you remember the movie Beetlejuice, but this kind of reminds me of the movie Beetlejuice. They have some artwork just like that in the Deetz's house, um, in the movie Beetlejuice. I don't know if you remember that. They thought a poltergeist was on the loose. The noisy ghost that is blamed when things move around on their own. Daddy's view. No one has proved that poltergeist exists, but people everywhere have told stories about them for hundreds of years. And what they have told was none too different from what was happening to the Lombardos. Detective Briggs did not, of course, believe in poltergeists. He had begun to believe that Tom Lombardo might be to blame. Whenever something happened, Tom was usually in the room or nearby. Not Tommy, Tom Lombardo. um, when he accused Tom of causing the trouble, the boy denied it. I don't know what's going on, he said. All I know is it scares me. People said that Detective Briggs was a tough cop who would turn his mother in if she did something wrong. But he believed Tom. Only now, he didn't know what to think. Tuesday, February 25th. A newspaper reporter came to the house to interview the family. Afterward, he sat in the living room by himself, hoping that something would happen that he could describe in his story. Tom's room was just across the hall from where the reporter sat. The boy had gone to bed, but he had left his door open. Suddenly, a globe of the world flew out of the darkened room and smashed into the wall. Well, now we got a story, right? The reporter dashed into the bedroom and turned on the light. Tom was sitting in bed blinking, as if he had just been awakened from a sound sleep. What was that? He asked. Wednesday, February 26th. In the morning, a small plastic statue of the Virgin Mary rose up from a dresser in Mr. and Mrs. Lombardo's room and flew into a mirror. That night, while Tom was doing his homework, a 10-pound record player took off from a table, flew 15 feet, then crashed to the floor. This looks like this thing is going to destroy the whole house. Friday, February 28th. Excuse me. Two scientists arrived from Duke University in North Carolina. Hey, North Carolina, what do you know? They were parapsychologists who studied experiences like those the Lombardos were having. They spent several days talking to the family and examining the house, trying to understand what was going on and what was causing it. One night, a bottle of bleach popped its top, but that was all that happened during their visit. They did not tell the Lombardos about a theory they had that a poltergeist actually might be involved in such cases. According to this idea, poltergeists were not ghosts. They were normal teenagers. They had become so troubled by a problem that their emotions built up into a kind of vibration, kind of like Matilda, if you will. I'm sure you've seen the movie Matilda. Since it was taking place in their unconscious minds, they didn't even know it was happening. But the vibration somehow left their body. Excuse me, I have a little bit of allergenic post-nasal drip. Yeah, it is a great movie. Esnam loves watching it. And that's what I love about Alvin Schwartz is that he shows, he often adds in a little bit of doubt. Like even in a ghost story, he says, "Well, that's what people say. That's what some people say." So here he's kind of adding the doubt that it's a real poltergeist, and it's just they had a theory that it was actually the child with some emotional distress that's causing it. But the vibration somehow left their bodies and moved whatever it struck. It happened again and again until the problem had been solved. Scientists had given this strange power a name. They called it psychokinesis, the ability to move objects with mental power and mind over matter. No one knew if this really could happen or how to prove it. Yet most reports of poltergeists did involve families with teenage children. and there were two teenagers in the Lombardo family. So tell me if, obviously, I'm sure some of the theories have changed now. This book was written in the early 90s, of stories that have been around, that were around for decades at that time. Monday, March 3rd, 1958. The parapsychologists said that they would prepare a report on what they had learned. The day after they left, the trouble returned with a vengeance. Excuse me, burp trouble. Tuesday, March 4th. In the afternoon, a bowl of flowers flew off the dining room table and smashed into a cupboard. Then a bottle of bleach. Can you imagine flying bleach? No, thank you. I can do without that. Then a bottle of bleach jumped out of a cardboard box and popped its top. Then a bookcase filled with encyclopedias flew over and wedged itself between a radiator and a wall. Then a flashlight bulb on a table rose up and hit a wall 12 feet away. Finally, 4 knocks were heard coming from the kitchen when nobody was in that room. Just kidding, that was me. Yeah, too dangerous, I'll tell you, with some bleach going on. Wednesday, did I get anybody with that though when I was tapping on S&M's night table? Wednesday, March 5th. While Mrs. Lombardo was making breakfast, she heard a loud crash in the living room. The coffee table had turned over by itself. But that was the end of it. After a month of chaos, everything returned to normal. In August, the 2 parapsychologists gave their report. They decided that the Lombardos had not made up the story, nor had they imagined it. Their trouble had been real, but what caused it? They said that no pranks or tricks were involved, nor was any magic. As the police had done, they also ruled out vibrations from underground water or other physical causes. The only explanation they could not rule out was the possibility that a teenage poltergeist had been at work, moving objects with mental power, just like Matilda, but it was the only answer they had. They did not have enough evidence to prove it, but it was the only answer they had. If it was a poltergeist, they thought it was Tom. If they were right, if a normal boy like Tom or Tommy Levette, just kidding, had become a poltergeist, this might also happen to other teenagers, and it might even happen to you. All right, so that was a section in and of itself in this book, and this takes us to the last section of the book. My leg is falling asleep here. All right, let me see. So I see 3 likes, which means there are 3 people here. Let me know who you are. I really appreciate you leaving all these comments, Tommy. Thank you. Yeah, it's actually, thank you for enjoying this. I'm glad you enjoyed the story is what I mean to say. I didn't make it up. This is written by Alvin Schwartz. And this next section is called Ooh. There are 4 ghosts, a ghostly monster, a corpse, and a corpse in this chapter. But the stories about them are funny, not scary. So this, to end the 3-volume legacy of scary stories to tell in the dark, Alvin Schwartz decided to end it on a funny note, on a more humorous note. And scary stories can be fun and funny too. So again, just to show you this amazing artwork. So this is kind of the preface to this chapter. And then you get, just gruesomely funny. Tommy, did you get to see, or whoever else is here, there's 2 or 3 other people here. Did you guys get to see Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the movie that came out last year? Because you'll recognize, especially in this one, Scary Stories 3. Oops. There we go. So this one is called Strangers. Just to let you know, though, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the movie that came out last year, was not. That's awesome. I don't think they'll have it on Netflix, but if they do, let me know. I'd like to know that. Yeah. So what they did is very loosely based on the 3 volumes of this book, and they very loosely based it. It was really just the imagery of the book that they tried to capture with some loosely. Some stories that were loosely covered I don't have my stand here. I was time lapsing earlier, and I left my stand in the living room. But all right, this next story is called Strangers. A man and a woman happened to sit next to one another on a train. The woman took out a book and began reading. Shania Singh, great to see you. I'm gonna have to check Netflix for that movie. Yeah, if you like scary stories, there some people really loved that movie that came out last year, but it's based on these books that I've been reading for the past months in my live stream. And if you love scary stories, you'll love these books. You can borrow them for free on archive.org for up to 15 days. I'm not sponsored by them. I came across this because I was looking for a way to download these books for free. So instead of spending 40 to $50 on books that I might only read once or twice, once in a while, I can borrow them whenever I want, and they're on the internet forever. So I'm thankful for that. And you can borrow up to 10 books at a time. So that's how I've gotten through this. Shania and whomever else is here, I started this a month ago when the whole COVID-19 quarantine kind of a panic came across in Canada where I live, originally from the States, from New Jersey. But yeah, so it's been a month. I started reading this series of books, and it's just incredible how fast time goes by. It's already been a month. We're at the end of this, and I'm gonna start playing more music when I go live with my guitar and my piano. I'm gonna take a break from scary stories for a little while because it's really fun, and it's been a blast taking this time capsule out and just getting in a time machine like Doc Brown and just going back into my childhood has been an amazing experience. But man cannot live on scary stories alone. All right, so Strangers. A man and a woman happened to sit next to one another on a train. The woman took out a book and began reading. The train stopped at a half dozen stations, so about 6 stations, but she never looked up once. The man watched her for a while, then asked, "What are you reading?" "It's a ghost story," she said. "It's very good. Very spooky." "Do you believe in ghosts?" he asked. "Yes, I do," she said. She replied, "There are ghosts everywhere." "I don't believe in them," he said. It's just a lot of superstition. In all my years, I've never seen a ghost. Not one." "Haven't you?" the woman said, and vanished. "Haven't you?" And then blank page, just vanished. So that's pretty incredible. All right. Yeah, so this is an amazing artwork too. If you like dark artwork, you'll love the illustrations by Stephen Gamble. Hey Tommy, have a great night. I know you usually go to bed. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and thank you for the awesome story. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Tommy, and I'm honored to have you here, just like you, Shania, and whomever else is here. I see 4 likes on this video, so it's greatly appreciated. Likes do help. So yeah, have a great night. Enjoy your Legos, and please be safe. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Don't go out unless you really, really need to. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. So this story, as you can see in the image, is called The Hog. When Arthur and Anne were in high school, they fell in love. They were both big, fat, jolly, and seemed suited to one another. But as sometimes happens, things didn't work out. Arthur moved away and married someone else, and Anne didn't marry anyone. And not too many years later, she got sick and died. Some said it was from a broken heart. One day, Arthur was driving to a small town not far from where he and Anne had grown up. Soon he realized that a hog was following him. No matter how fast Arthur drove, the hog stayed right behind him. Each time he looked back, there was the hog. It began to irritate him. Finally, he couldn't stand it any longer. He stopped his car and rapped the hog on its snout good and hard. "Get out of here, you fat, dirty thing," he shouted. To his astonishment, the hog spoke to him, and it was Anne's voice he heard. It's her ghost, he thought. She's come back as a hog. I was doing no harm, Arthur, the hog said. I was just out for a brisk walk, enjoying myself. How could you strike me after all these years? After all we meant to one another. With that, she turned and trotted away. When you tell this story, have the hog speak in a high voice. Well, I tried. So there you go. And the next story is Something Wrong. A car broke down late at night out in the country, way out in the country. The driver remembered passing an empty house a few minutes earlier. I'll stay here, he thought. At least I'll get some sleep. He found some wood in the corner of the living room and made a fire in the fireplace. He covered himself with his coat and slept. Toward morning, the fire went out, and the cold awakened him. It'll be light soon, he thought. Then I'll go for help. He closed his eyes again, but before he could doze off, there was a terrible crash. Something big and heavy had fallen out of the chimney. It lay on the floor for a minute. It lay on the floor for a minute. Then it stood up and stared down at him. The man took one look and started running. He had never seen anything so horrible in his life. He paused just long enough to jump through a window. Then he ran and ran and ran and ran until he thought his lungs would burst. As he stood in the road panting, trying to catch his breath, he felt something tap him on the shoulder. He turned around and found himself staring into two big, bloody eyes in a grinning skull. It was the horrible thing. Pardon me, he said. Is something wrong? And this is what he looks like. For those of you who are watching this on the replay, this is what he looks like. Ooh. Can you imagine having this tap you on the shoulders? Oh my. Amazing, amazing artwork from Stephen Gammell. I really like that Alvin Schwartz decided to end this on a positive, fun note. And I really like ending it on a positive, fun note too. So that makes me very happy. It's him. The woman was the meanest, most miserable person you could imagine. And her husband was just as bad. The only good thing was that they lived in the woods all by themselves and couldn't bother anyone else. One day they were off getting some firewood, and the woman got so mad at her husband that she grabbed an axe and cut his head off just like that. Then she buried him nice and neat and went home. She made herself a cup of tea and went out on the porch. She sat there rocking in her rocking chair, sipping her tea, thinking how glad she was that she had done this awful thing. After a while, she heard this old, empty voice out in the distance, moaning and groaning, and it was saying, "Ooh, who's going to stay with me in this cold, lonely night? Ooh." It's him, she thought, and she hollered back, "Stay by yourself, you old goat." Soon she heard the voice again, only now it was closer, and it was saying, "Who's going to sit with me in this cold, lonely night? Ooh." "Only a crazy man," she shouted. "Sit by yourself, you old dirty rat." Then she heard the voice even closer, and it was saying, "Who Who's going to be with me this cold and lonely night? Oh! Nobody, she sneered. Be by yourself, you miserable mole. She stood up to go into the house, but now the voice was right behind her, and it was whispering, who's going to stay with me this cold, lonely night? Oh! Before she could answer back, a big hairy hand came around the corner and grabbed her, and the voice hollered, You are! Normally, as you say this line, the last line, grab one of your friends, but it's kind of hard for me to grab one of you guys. And here's a picture of her husband after she murdered him. So there's the you are. And then here is the scary monster of a murdered husband. And this next story is called Thup. I think you're supposed to, I will not do it because of COVID-19, but you're supposed to go with your finger in your mouth and make the thup sound. After Sarah went to bed, she saw a ghost. It was sitting on her dresser, staring at her through two black holes where its eyes had been. She shrieked, ah! And her mother and her father came running. There's a ghost on my dresser, she said, trembling. It's staring at me. When they had turned on the light, it was gone. You were having a bad dream, her father said. Now go back to sleep. But after they left, there it was again, sitting on her dresser, staring at her. She pulled the blanket over her head and fell asleep. The next night, the ghost was back. It was up on the ceiling, staring down at her. When Sarah saw it, she screamed. Again, her mother and father came running. It's up on the ceiling, she said. When they turned on the light, nothing was there. It's your imagination, her mother said, and gave her a hug. But after they left, there it was again, staring down at her from the ceiling. She put her head under the pillow and fell asleep. The next night, the ghost was back. It was sitting on her bed, staring at her. Sarah called to her parents, and they came running. It's on my bed, she said. It's looking and looking at me. When they turned on the light, nothing was there. You're upset over nothing, her father said, and kissed her on the nose, and then tucked her into bed. Now go to sleep. And here's Stephen Gammell's rendition of what she was seeing. That would be pretty awkward and scary, especially if you're young or at any age, really. There you go. Flip it back around. But after they left, there it was again, sitting on her bed, staring at her. Why are you doing this to me? Sarah asked. Why don't you leave me alone? The ghost put its fingers in its ears and wiggled them at her. Then it stuck its tongue out and went, or a thup. And what it says here is, to make this sound, put your tongue between your lips and blow. It's called giving someone the raspberry. So yeah, we all know about raspberries. You do on your, your daughter's belly without your tongue, obviously. I will not do it because of COVID-19, but you know the sound when you're blowing on someone's, your daughter's or child's belly, or whomever's belly you may or may not be blowing on after having washed it and sterilized it with rubbing alcohol and Purell and all kinds soap and water for 30 seconds while singing happy birthday. All right. So, and here's more of Stephen Gammell's artwork. We're at the end. I see one person here, and I'm honored to have you. Let me know who you are. Comment and let me know who you are, because I'm honored to have you here. So yeah, and this is a song that appears in one of the first books, but with different words. So it kind of feels like a cop out, but it's called "You May Be the Next," and it's the same as the Hearse song. If any of you know that. Did you ever think? Did you ever think as the hearse goes by that you may be the next to die? Something like that. So yeah, did you ever think as a hearse goes by that you may be the next to die? They wrap you in a big white sheet from your head down to your feet. The worms crawl in and the worms crawl out, in your stomach and out your snout. And your eyes fall out and your teeth decay, and that is the end of a perfect day. So, yeah. And that is also the end of these books for now. And you can just see amazing artwork by Stephen Gammell. And also, what I love about Alvin Schwartz is that he gives notes and sources to all these stories, not necessarily to prove that ghosts really, not necessarily to prove that ghosts really exists, but to show, to cite his sources, because a lot of scary stories are based in folklore, and a lot of scary stories, as he says himself, have been around for many, many hundreds, and in some cases thousands of years. So I would love to go over that with you, but it's the scary stories is what interests me the most. But yeah, just to show you a little bit more of that artwork, though, that because he puts the artwork inside in the appendix, or rather, what's the name of this, in the notes and sources section, or the appendix of this book. So yeah, there you go. Some more of that amazingly scary artwork here, just incredible. See if I can find some more. Stephen Gammell, if you do go out and buy copies of these books, make sure it says artwork by Stephen Gammell, Stephen Gammell. If it's not Stephen Gammell, don't even bother with the book. Just rent it for free, borrow it for free from archive.org, like I did, to get the original artwork, because that is the classic scary stories to tell in the dark artwork. The new artwork could be considered scary, but it's not. It's just doesn't have the same feel for someone who grew up with the books, especially. Just doesn't have that same feel. Amazing as the original books. Actually, this might be interesting. From the section "What's Going On Here," the trouble when no cause could be found for the strange events in this story. Many people wondered if a noisy, mischief-making ghost called a poltergeist was responsible. Stories of poltergeist hauntings have been common in our folklore for centuries. It was said that these poltergeists caused objects to fly and furniture to dance, pulled sheets and blankets from beds, made rapping and groaning sounds, and other mischief. At a ranch in Cisco, Texas in 1881, something or someone threw rocks, opened locked doors without a key, squeezed raw eggs through the cracks in the ceiling. Wow, that's incredible. And meowed like a cat. Everything and everyone was checked just as they were in the trouble. So we can see kind of this story comes from 1881. That the first story I read in this video. Some of what happened could have been caused by a prankster, but there were no explanations for much of it, except that a poltergeist had been at work. Parapsychologists, such as the two in our story, are concerned with mental powers humans may have that are not yet understood, like psychokinesis and extrasensory perception. Are examples of those powers. The trouble is based on news reports in the New York Times and Life magazine and other publications. For stories of poltergeists and information on poltergeist research, see Carrington, Fodder, and Creighton, Haynes, Hole, and Rogo. Those are just stories. The names of people who have done studies on that. All right, so that takes us to the end of this series of books, Scary Stories. Much love and respect goes out to Alvin Schwartz. who compiled these stories many decades ago. And that's going to be the end of the scary stories for now. I think we had a good run for the past month from the end of February up until now. Actually, mid-March basically is actually no, I had gotten into it by the end of February. So a nice month-long trip back to my childhood. I'm really happy to end it on a funny, with more funny stories and stuff like that. As you can see, I need a haircut. I'm gonna get a haircut, and I'm running out of hairspray, so I'm trying to save it for when I actually do need to go out. But yeah, so there it is. We're hanging in there, having our grocery because I have asthma. We're having our groceries delivered as often as we can, and I'm waiting for more masks to come, more face masks to come in the mail, so that I can go out and get our groceries in case some things are missing from the groceries. But yeah, that's it in SNM's room tonight. Just because we're trying to charge, and this is one of the only rooms that has a cord where I can set up to do a live stream, because a lot of the plugs in this house have faulty wiring. So guys, I love you. For those of you who were here earlier, thank you so much for that. For those of you who have reached this far, please let me know you got this far in the comments below, and just say something like boo. Just say boo, B-O-O, in the comments below if you've gotten this far. Let me know. Much love and respect to you guys. I'm gonna go live tomorrow when I'm on my way to pick up SNM just to be with you guys and do something fun with you. We haven't done a drive stream in ages, so I'm really looking forward to doing that tomorrow night. And yeah, so we have the groceries got delivered today, which I'm thankful for too, so we don't have to worry about that until next week. And yeah, so much love and respect. Thank you for being with us. Daddy's still broadcasting, signing off for now. Ciao, guys. Take it easy.